everybody. Welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here. We are live on YouTube, presented by FanDuel, and plenty of room tonight on a Monday for questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, and so forth. But, over the last couple of weeks, we've been working our way through all the Minnesota Vikings quarterback options. We've got former Vikings quarterbacks chiming in. I've had a couple of reporters on the show to talk about their different options and potential approaches. We've talked at least a little bit about almost every single potential quarterback that the Vikings could acquire to make for a, quote, highly competitive quarterback room. And we've also discussed what exactly that means, that Kevin O'Connell wants a highly competitive quarterback room. And so after all sorts of reflection, I wrote an article today about one of these quarterbacks over at purpleinsider.football. I've studied the analytics and the data of each guy and the way that they play, wrote an article about that as well, where they throw the ball successfully, the different trends, the ups and downs of these potentially available QBs, and I've settled on a ranking list. So I'm not going to waste any time here. I'm going to get right into my rankings of the top quarterback options for the Minnesota Vikings in 2026, and then we'll get your guys' feedback. Also, I saw Greg Rosenthal and Bill Barnwell put out a list of tradable players, and it's a very robust list, and there's a couple guys that stuck out to me as potential Vikings options, despite some of the limitations with, salary cap and trade, options for sending draft picks out and all that sort of thing. But we'll look at that as well. And I grabbed a couple other NFL headlines that we can discuss throughout the evening, but I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's jump right in to the official Purple Insider quarterback 2026 rankings. Here we go. So there is 8 quarterbacks, and I'm going to go through them one by one and why they are where they are on the list. And you guys can react. I'd love your top 3 in the comments, or if you totally dislike the list, please let me know as well. So we're going to start out with, I've made no secret of this one, the number one option, I think, for the Minnesota Vikings, the best quarterback that they could get from an age perspective and from a recent performance perspective. Now, this is really 2024, but recent enough, is Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray. I think that he is a better schematic fit based on what he did in 2024 than most people would expect. He was under center about a quarter of the time. He ran a good amount of play action, and he is a good intermediate passer. He is not by the numbers an elite deep passer these days, but at the same time, I don't know if he's had all of the best weapons when it comes to throwing deep, maybe in comparison to Justin Jefferson, but at very least, as Kirk Cousins once did for Kevin O'Connell, Kyler Murray could execute a lot of the intermediate passing to Justin Jefferson. He has previously worked the football like crazy to a number 1 wide receiver. And despite some concerns about personality, I would like to remind you that once upon a time, there were concerns about Kirk Cousins' personality and certain former head coaches who maybe didn't get along the best with Kirk Cousins, who ended up being shaken on the sideline by Kirk Cousins. And then by the end of his time in Minnesota, he was considered the leader of the locker room. So if there's anything that Kevin O'Connell can do, it's reach a quarterback and teach him how to lead a locker room. And I also thought too, I don't need Kyler Murray to lead a locker room. I've got Jefferson, got Brian O'Neill. If you're the Vikings, you've got a lot of leaders in the locker room. You need someone to throw the football and someone to make some plays. A lot of discussion last year about the offensive line and the pressure that was created, but if you have a playmaker, they can mitigate some of that. So I think Kyler Murray has the highest ceiling of any of these quarterback options. I think under the right circumstances, with an excellent defense, with a good offensive scheme for him, with a running game that clearly the Vikings are investing in. They just hired another coach that is going to be on the run side, and I think that they're going to draft a running back, sign a running back. Kyler Murray would have the best circumstances he's ever had, and he's already had in his career 2 seasons where he is ranked by PFF in the top 12, including 2021, where he was a top 10 PFF quarterback. Not too many of our other options we can say that about. So the number one guy to me has the highest ceiling, and that is former number 1 overall pick, Kyler Murray. And every one of these may come along with a bit of an asterisk. If you have to trade for Kyler Murray, that maybe makes it a little more tricky. And it depends. Will Arizona take most of that money? I think that Arizona has to take, if not almost all of it, most of it. I also think that there's a good chance that most teams just wait out the Arizona Cardinals and do not make a trade for Murray. Rather, they will just make them release Kyler Murray. So if they do, he is the number 1 option for me for the Vikings. And in the worst case scenario that maybe he's just a mid quarterback, you know what he'll provide you with? Some entertainment. You can feel something, some excitement, some exhilaration, even if there's frustration that goes along with it. So that's why Kyler Murray is the number 1 option on this list. Number 2 on my list is Malik Willis. Now, I think based on a very small sample size of Malik Willis, and I also talked to my friend Jason Wilde today for an episode that's coming out tomorrow, who covers the Green Bay Packers. He is a big fan of Malik Willis and the work ethic behind the scenes, the patience, and the way that he was able to step in for Jordan Love is stuff that is telling about what he can be. The concern is sample size. He has a lot of the things that Kyler Murray has. He even has a stronger arm. He is a little bigger, elite running skills, and his performance when he was thrown into the fire was very, very good. And so he wasn't intimidated. He wasn't overwhelmed by the stage of being tossed in against the Baltimore Ravens on national TV. Looks like a pro quarterback. It is a very small sample, but it's also a small sample of phenomenal football play. And I think that he is not a guy that you would say, oh, well, can he fit in a scheme or whatever, because he has the arm strength to make every throw. And even though I wouldn't put him as the next Drew Brees when it comes to touch, I saw such improvement from him to the point where he is right now in throwing the football with touch versus where he was when he first came into the league, where he was at the Senior Bowl, where he was at Liberty. And when we talk about ceiling, that's going to be the focus of a lot of this at the top of my list, is you could see Malik Willis, because of his running ability, because of his development, becoming a very good NFL starting quarterback. The complication here is, how do you convince him to come here instead of Arizona once they get rid of Kyler Murray? How do you convince Malik Willis, hey, this is a better place for them, for you to be than with Arizona, where you're going to be the starting quarterback? So I think convincing him that it's not going to be a quarterback competition, that's another part of this. And the list has, well, we'll get to that later on, but the start of the list assumes that the Vikings don't want to start JJ McCarthy with jobs on the line and Kevin O'Connell needing to go back to the playoffs and needing to get a playoff win, that he would not be willing to put that on a quarterback last year who performed at the bottom of the league in almost every category. So every one of these has their own little, hey, would Malik Willis actually come here? Could you convince him that this is better than going to a team like Arizona that has not been able to help its quarterback? And then you have, LaFleur connection there. You have Miami with, their defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, going there, although they seem like they're completely rebuilding their team. So there are other franchises that can make a good argument to Malik Willis, but those franchises do not have Sam Darnold recently playing there, and that the location that he started to turn his career around. They also don't have Justin Jefferson, which to me is pretty compelling. If I flew Malik Willis in for a visit to Minnesota, I would just have highlights playing. When you walk into the lobby at TCO Performance Center, there's a TV. And sometimes when, say the Fox broadcast is there doing their pregame interviews and stuff, it'll say welcome Fox broadcast. I would just have Justin Jefferson's catch against Buffalo right there. Like, you don't even have to throw it exactly right, Malik. So he's my number 2 option because I also think there's potential longer term for both him and Kyler Murray were it to work out. My number 3 option is Derek Carr. And this one also assumes that they don't want to start JJ McCarthy and they would prefer to have a veteran. If you look at Derek Carr's career, when he has had good circumstances, he has been as high as a top 5 to 10 quarterback at different points in his career. When he has had bad circumstances, he has been like the 20th best quarterback in the league. So he is a guy that it's going to be very dependent on what's around him. And the assumption still is in Minnesota that you can give quarterbacks a lot around them. Justin Jefferson, I'm figuring Jordan Addison to be back. O'Connell's offense, a rebuilt offensive line that I would assume gets a center. And something that really stood out to me investigating Derek Carr's history is that he is very good at sack avoidance, which the Minnesota Vikings offense desperately needs because its quarterbacks took a lot of sacks that they didn't have to take last year. But Derek Carr is very good at getting rid of the football. And I know that there's a narrative that he gets his wide receivers injured all the time. I couldn't find a lot of evidence of that other than Chris Olave recently. But in terms of his history, I just couldn't find where his receivers were getting hurt all the time. And he also threw to Devontae Adams like 170 times or something when they played together. Adams went for 1,500 yards in 2022 when he went to the Raiders. So and he played like every game. So I don't know if that just happened once or twice and Michael Thomas tweeted about it and then everyone assumed he just gets his receivers killed, but could not really find that throughout his history other than this one wide receiver who had some bad luck. I think Carr is accurate. He has a very good arm. His deep ball is excellent. In 2024, he was graded second by PFF at throwing the ball over 20 yards downfield. And if you look at the offense that he came from with Clint Kubiak, the amount that was under center, the amount of play action, the success with play action is very similar to what the Minnesota Vikings do. The big concern would be, well, one, again, you have to trade for him. It's not ideal. The big concern would be the guy's been out of football and he left football for a shoulder injury. And yes, there are Randall Cunningham comparisons, but also there are quarterbacks that are similar to him, like Kirk Cousins, like Ryan Tannehill, guys who were always kind of in that fringed part of the top 10 that fell off in their mid-30s. And so does Derek Carr still have it? And also, if you bring him in, there's not really a long-term element to that. Maybe there's 2 years of him, but it wouldn't be much more than that. And is that got a ceiling that's high enough to bench JJ McCarthy to go with Derek Carr to try to get back to the playoffs? Can you actually win in the postseason with him? That one, I think, would be a little bit tricky to prove, but he has had some good seasons before when he's been with good teams. And when you go through his history, man, I mean, he's had some bad breaks. Like he got hurt when he was 12-4 and couldn't play in the playoffs. Then Jack Del Rio got fired the next year. He gets John Gruden. He's playing very well. Then Gruden's emails come out. They fire him. They bring in Josh McDaniels, who is not a good head coach at all. He goes to New Orleans, doesn't really fit with the offense. They bring in an offense that works for him, and then he gets hurt after 10 games. So it's been some bad breaks. I think Derek Carr could lead this team back to the playoffs. So he is my number 3 option. Daniel Jones is number 4. I am going on the assumption that Jones will return to the Indianapolis Colts, but were the Vikings to make him the right kind of multi-year offer, they were really in the Daniel Jones business. If the Colts suddenly got cold feet about Daniel Jones, then maybe the Vikings could swoop in and get him as their starting quarterback. And with Daniel Jones, I think that you're still talking about a guy who would be on a short-term type of deal. And it would be just going back in time almost to last year. The Achilles injury is a concern. Not all Achilles injuries are the same, though. I don't know to what degree his injury was versus what Kirk's was or versus Aaron Rodgers. He is clearly younger than those guys. But I think Daniel Jones can get you back to the playoffs. And if you're not going to go with JJ McCarthy and you need a real starting quarterback who could get you to the playoffs and win a playoff game, Daniel Jones is in that list. Now, my number 5 on the list is the line of demarcation. This is called the just stick with JJ McCarthy line, because anything below these guys, anything below Kyler Murray, Malik Willis, Derek Carr, and Daniel Jones, among those you have 3 proven starting quarterbacks who can get you double-digit wins in the right circumstances. They've done it before. We've seen it. They know how to play in the NFL. Or Malik Willis, who I think has a pretty high upside. This is the line where I just don't think that the guys after this are doing a whole heck of a lot for you. So just sticking with McCarthy, meaning go get Marcus Mariota, go get a regular backup, somebody who can like push him sort of, maybe in a quarterback competition, but not necessarily someone who's truly competing with him. And if he were to lose out a quarterback competition to Marcus Mariota, then you have your answer on JJ McCarthy. You're also in a lot of trouble, but still, you would almost rather just not even bother with the bottom of this list below JJ McCarthy, because it's hard to believe that either it's any sort of long-term option or that person could get you back to the playoffs. So number 5 is just stick with JJ McCarthy. Number 6 on the list is Mac Jones. Now, I'm not totally anti Mac Jones. Once upon a time, this show, way back in 2021, advocated for the draft of Mac Jones because I thought, well, you have Justin Jefferson and he's on a rookie deal. So if you put a lot of money into rebuilding the defense and he plays sort of like Kirk Cousins, then profit. And I think that is still possible, but there is very likely a ceiling on Mac Jones that is not somebody who's very likely. It's always possible. Like, guys have won playoff games without playing very well. Didn't TJ Yates won a playoff game at one point? And it's happened, but you would probably need a lot of luck and a really great matchup and everything to fall perfectly for a quarterback who is, I think, good, but not good enough to take you over the top with the physical limitations. He's not a playmaker. He's not going to get outside the pocket. What you see is going to be what you get. And just numbers wise has been a very poor downfield thrower over his career. Just doesn't feel like something that is going to be a great fit unless they're going to go to this underneath crossing route type of offense, which worked for him in San Francisco. I just have a tough time seeing it having any sort of ceiling in this division that goes beyond maybe 8 or 9 wins if he plays okay. I mean, I know they got 9 this year. One of them was an exhibition game at the end of the season. Maybe you could get 10 wins with him. It's just very hard to see one of those classic Vikings stories of, hey, this guy played for this other random team and then was really great. Like, I think Jones is very much a fringe starting quarterback in the league. So he is below just finding out more about JJ McCarthy. Number 7 is Aaron Rodgers. And for the story and for the entertainment value and for the attention on the situation and the Vikings franchise and everything else, the view count after every single press conference that Aaron Rodgers holds, okay, that's fine. He can still throw the ball. There's no question about that. But in terms of how you can deal with pressure, we saw that in Pittsburgh. The ceiling on that just feels like another 9-10 win, and then you're probably going to be eliminated in the playoffs. Also, that's even assuming that Rodgers has as much as he did in Pittsburgh. He took a whole nother year of hits to go along with, I think the body ages faster when you get into the late 30s and the 40s. Now you are asking for a guy to go into almost his mid 40s playing starting quarterback for the Vikings. It would just feel like they did it for the entertainment. They did it for the attention. They did it for a guy who could definitely get the ball to Justin Jefferson. There's no doubt about that. But can he really take you any farther at this age? If you were taking me back even a couple years with Aaron Rodgers, I would say, well, yeah, of course you want to do this. I'm just not convinced that it can go very far. And option number 8 is Kirk Cousins. The only reason why Kirk Cousins wouldn't be too bad of an option is if you told me that it is in earnest, not a fake quarterback competition, but a true quarterback competition with him and JJ McCarthy. I don't know if Kirk signs without guarantees that he's going to be the starter, because there's other teams that are so desperate for a quarterback that he could just go play somewhere else. And he's already on record at Radio Row having said that he wants to play. So I think he said I would prefer to play, but I mean, this guy can go be a broadcaster and make more millions of dollars broadcasting. Clearly his tryout went really, really well with CBS. He could replace Matt Ryan and just go forward and talk ball like the rest of us. So if he's not going to do that, then that means he's going to play, right? I think that has the possibility of going very poorly, considering that unlike Aaron Rodgers, he was never an elite athlete to begin with. So were he to drop off even more, which he's already dropped off and threw a ton of percentage of his passes, 20% of his passes behind the line of scrimmage last year, wasn't really able to push the ball downfield in the last 2 years like he used to. And yet I still think he would win in training camp a quarterback competition, because he knows the offense inside and out. And because if you watch him throw in practice, he's very accurate. We know that, JJ McCarthy can make progress, but he can't reach the level of accuracy of a guy who's 37. And I do think Kirk could run the offense. He could get them in games. It's just very hard to see in this division them being much more than a third place team with Kirk Cousins as their quarterback. And then what did you really gain from this season? So there you go. To recap the list, Kyler Murray, love the upside. It's very risky if it didn't work out, but he's done it before. Malik Willis, there's a player who's on the rise and might have a case to come here. Derek Carr is the Randall Cunningham route. Daniel Jones is number 4. Just stick with JJ McCarthy. Number 5. 6 is Mac Jones. Number 7, Aaron Rodgers. And number 8 is Kirk Cousins. So there is your official Purple Insider list of Vikings potential options at quarterback. Now, the thing that we don't know, just to add a little bit of, context to it, the thing that we do not know is whether the Vikings want someone to be in competition with JJ McCarthy or if they want another starting quarterback. I was going on the assumption that they want another starting quarterback for this list and then working my way through that. And there's some other quarterbacks that someone asked about. Tua. Tua's not coming to the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, if they did, that would be crazy, considering that Brian Flores is here. They can't take that contract. So that would mean he would get released and he's going to sign with a team where Brian Flores is. That seems pretty unlikely. So, all right, let me duck first under the table here and let's get your reactions. Let's see how you felt about this list here. We'll scroll down a little bit to get there, but Rich says, let's face it, KOC doesn't run the ball. His offense is predictable. I mean, we can't spend the entire season, the offseason, just saying they'll never win anything because of their coach, who has twice put them in position to be legitimate contenders. So we just can't do that. And I also think that O'Connell is going to commit to running the ball. Now, last year, the thing about the Vikings running game last year is that it was fairly efficient. It wasn't unbelievable. It wasn't Adrian Peterson. It wasn't Dalvin Cook. It was at least above average in terms of expected points added and yards per carry. Now, I'm sure you're saying, well, yeah, but he didn't use it. I mean, that's true in some instances for sure. But I think that this year, bumping up Keith Carter to the offensive line coach and going outside and getting some experts on the run side, they are going to commit to that. So all those quarterbacks go along with, and look, they succeeded, even in 2024, they succeeded with play action without having an effective run game. Let's see. Janice says, do we know for sure that Kyler has offsetting language in his contract? I do not know that for 100% sure. The fella who works for overthecap.com, Troy Chapman, came on the show, did say that he expects that to be the case if they were to release Kyler Murray. And that's the thing, like each one of these things comes with an asterisk in my ranking. If you're trading for Kyler Murray's contract, of course not. No way. If you're paying Daniel Jones $45 million a year, no, of course not. No way. So every one of those, and Malik Willis, same thing, has that asterisk to it, that it has to be under the right circumstances. But, I figured that was kind of obvious that would be the case. Oops, 61, Kyler's a trash quarterback and a locker room poison. Look, man, people just say stuff about, I'm going to keep going back to Sam Darnold. How many people, when they signed Sam Darnold, put in this comment section, the guy who sees ghosts, like you're the first one who's ever thought of it. I mean, first I would like to say, when you say trash quarterback, I keep going back to these stats and I just don't know that anybody listens. In 2024, 3,800 yards, 24 touchdowns, 10 picks, 500 yards rushing, and ranked 12th by PFF. Now, was it inconsistent? Yes, it was. He had a game where they beat the Rams 41-10, and he had 6 big-time throws. He had other games that were very frustrating that season. That's been who Kyler Murray is. He's had games like, man, against the Vikings in 2021. Go back and watch that game. Tell me he's a trash QB. Like, great description, man. I mean, do we got any other thing that you can use to sort of show that with your hands or numbers or anything? Or you just, dismiss somebody? But it's the same thing that's happened to Sam Darnold his whole career, and he's got a Lombardi. So I like to see, when I look at these options, well, what would fit and what might work and what might make sense under the right circumstances, because what I know is that the Vikings can give whatever quarterback a very good set of circumstances. And as far as the locker room goes, I'm glad to know that you were in the locker room with him, but I have not been able to find anything. And look, I don't believe that the guy is John Elway in terms of leadership. I don't think he's Joe Montana. I've never said that. There's smoke and fire. There's truth to all rumors. I'm sure that there is truth there. But I also think that these narratives get out of control. Like, one person says he's a bad leader or something, and then everybody just buys it. I mean, the reason for them to get rid of Kyler Murray is that they signed this huge contract, but they're not ready to win at all. The worst thing that Kyler Murray could do for them would be win 8 games, and maybe it was. And then they had to go and, tank this year by sitting him. Oliphant says zero interest in Kyler because KOC isn't willing to change his plan of attack. So this is my point. He doesn't have to. He actually doesn't have to. And here's where I can show you some of this stuff. Let me switch my screen here. I will show you some of this stuff, what I'm talking about, because this is another thing that I don't think is really true. So when we look at, just for example, the play action passing for Kyler Murray in 2024, and we go look at 2024 play action drop back percentage, let's look at Darnold. How often? So Sam Darnold used play action on 28% of his passes. And let's find Kyler Murray. And let's take a look at his performance. So Kyler Murray, oh look, 29%. They used play action on the same exact percentage of their dropbacks. And in terms of ranking for yardage using play action, Sam Darnold was number 3 and Kyler Murray was number 5. They ran a lot of play action concepts with Kyler Murray. And when he used play action, he had a 101.4 quarterback rating, which was 15th in the league. So he had at least a fair amount of success as a play action quarterback, which we know is what the Vikings are going to do. I think it's Pro Football Reference has the percentage of under center snaps where Kyler Murray was he was a little bit behind Sam Darnold, but still way more than you would have thought. It was like 23%. Let's see. Let's take a look. He only ran screens 10% of the time. They actually had success with him. Whoever did their screens, come work for the Vikings. Let's look at passing depth. And this is 2024. So this is his passing depth right here, how far he threw the ball. When we look at intermediate passing between 10 and 19 yards, he had his highest PFF grade of 86.9. and his highest quarterback rating of anywhere throwing the ball on the field of 104.1. So he was running a lot of similar type of stuff from a statistical perspective as the Vikings do, intermediate passing. And his deep passing was not great, but it also was not horrible either. The QB rating is, but the PFF grade was not. Short stuff was a little less effective for him, but the short game is not exactly short game Kyler Murray. And when we look at intermediate in the middle of the field, he has not thrown deep in the middle of the field much, but intermediate in the middle of the field was his highest PFF grade of throwing anywhere on the field. So when I look at those numbers, I think that all kind of matches up with how the Vikings want to play, where they want to get Justin Jefferson the ball, getting their quarterback under center, maybe rolling him out and moving him away like Sam Darnold did a lot. This year with Seattle, Sam Darnold, number 1 in the NFL in yards when he was rolling out of the pocket. And so you don't have to always stand in there and whip it over the middle of the field. Kyler Murray hasn't won for a reason. Well, he does have at least one season where he's won. But, when you look at, just for a win-loss record, I mean, Matthew Stafford, when he went to the Los Angeles Rams, what was his win-loss record? I think it was 74-90-1 or something like that. I mean, where is Joe Burrow? Well, look, there's another asterisk for you because obviously Joe Burrow would be the number 1 option, and we all know that. Kyler is only 2 inches shorter than Case Keenum, and we should have kept Case Keenum. Let it go. Let it go. Is that Mahal? Let it go, Mahal. Let it go. I've always thought about that. What if they had kept Case Keenum? Would they have gotten to the playoffs in 2018? I don't know. I mean, maybe. If he fell off the face of the earth, then no. But maybe they would have grinded out some more wins playing really conservative as opposed to trying to throw every play with Kirk. But they couldn't run that year because Delvin came back and got hurt and the offensive line was tough. I don't know. That's old news. DLM, if you figure in feasibility, I think Murray and Carr jump to number 1 and 2, sticking with JJ at 3rd. Not sure they can pay Willis and Jones. That's a very fair point. And that's why the list can only be made with information that I know, and we don't know, how much is Indianapolis willing to pay Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles injury? Are they willing to make an investment? Would Daniel Jones require $100 million guaranteed or something based on a half a season that was good with Indianapolis and once upon a time making the playoffs with the Giants? Or because I was figuring that Daniel Jones would once again be signing a short-term, not super high money deal. That's why he's on the list as a plausible option. And he has familiarity with KOC. From things that Daniel Jones said about Minnesota, he really enjoyed his time and learned a lot from, he had mentioned that in interviews. So it seems like he liked Minnesota. But yeah, to your point about feasibility, if Kyler has the offsetting language or there's a trade where they take 90% of his cap, then yeah. And Derek Carr, same thing. The Saints, they're not going to keep him. They're playing Tyler Shuck. So they have to trade him for almost nothing and take a lot of the cap hit because otherwise no one's going to do it. And then he can force their hand. So you're right about that. Malik Willis, I just have no sense for this. I was talking to Jason Wilde about that. How much is the league going to pay for Malik Willis? And my pitch to Malik has been take less here to make more later. You go to the Jets, good luck, man. Good luck. You're going to end up with 3 other teams. Mr. Mayor says Kyler and Malik are my preferred options. I think Kyler gets 4,300 yards, 30 touchdowns on the 2025 Vikings. And Malik has had 2 years of development in a QB factory with 6 outstanding starts. That's where my logic is coming from. By putting those 2 at the top of the list is if Kyler Murray is healthy and he's locked in and he is motivated by the potential of another big contract down the road. Well, let's not forget that the 2 quarterbacks who left the Vikings, Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins, they both got way more money than we would have expected before, right? Before KOC got there. If you're Kyler Murray, you're looking for the next $100 million contract. And, maybe that's from the Vikings. I don't know, depending on how well it went. But I mean, I don't think it's absurd to say that Kyler Murray could throw for 4,000 yards with this team with the way that they're going to play. And if you go look at what DeAndre Hopkins did with him as the quarterback, Justin Jefferson's getting the ball. That's one thing you can guarantee. He throws with anticipation, a ton of anticipation sometimes. He's very accurate at times and very exciting at times. It's hard. If you're in a situation where you need a starting quarterback, it's hard to do better than that when you look at the other options. Chison says Aaron Rodgers will be the Vikings quarterback and he'll retire after a huge sack by the Bears, Brett Favre style. It's inevitable. Let's see. Native Res Runner. I love Rodgers because it could be a Favre type of year. I don't know. It would be fun to see him in purple. I'm an oldie though. Rodgers was drafted when I graduated high school. I mean, with Aaron Rodgers, if you could go back in time, it would be incredible. Now, the thing about Favre coming here, people did think Favre was cooked when he got to Minnesota. And if you go back and watch the first game that he starts, I mean, it's mostly handoffs and his short throws and stuff. And you're not seeing the old Brett Favre until he made the Greg Lewis throw against the San Francisco 49ers. So it could come alive for Aaron Rodgers. There were times this year, there were games this year where Aaron Rodgers was fantastic for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But there's just not that many. There's just not that many times. And if we go take a look at Aaron Rodgers and his numbers, I think the thing that I want to look at is just how consistent was Rodgers for the Steelers. And I know they're the Steelers, and this is my issue. Even if you could only see the colors, you see a lot of green, but you also see a lot of red and orange in here being the bad games. So you've got some games where he plays really well. And I mean, this game against Jacksonville where he averages 9.6 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, there were some good games in there. And, a 68.7 PFF grade is, oh no, I was looking at 2024. I'm sorry. I was looking at 2024. There's even more red in the 2025. There's a stretch where he had games of 35, 42, and 46 grades. I mean, that's just really tough. Baltimore was the game that he played really well, 88 PFF grade. But this is 1, 2, 3, 4 catastrophic games and an overall 68.7 PFF grade, a very low average depth of target of 6.4 yards. That's just really, really rough there. I mean, it's just hard to make the argument that Rodgers has enough to play 17 games and be really good. If you could give me Rodgers, he plays every other week. How about this? Rodgers and McCarthy play every other week. Like Bill Walsh was doing in 1988 with Montana and Steve Young or something. Then I could see it. I shot you 99. I still don't see the intrigue with Malik Willis. LaFleur dumbed down the offense so much when he played. They don't trust Willis to throw the ball a ton. I don't trust him to throw 25 times a game. I just don't agree with that. I agree with that for 2024. I do not agree in 2025. Those games that he played, especially the Baltimore game, that was not a dumbed down offense. He was playing an entire offense in that game. I did not see this simplified, hey, let's have him just, sort of throw to first reads and everything else. I mean, that was real legitimate quarterback play to me. And the accuracy in which he threw the football, this is not just like a game or two. This is really excellent performance over, a dumbed down offense at first, if you want to call it that, or a simple offense, but then he develops over another year, comes right in the game. I mean, you think that they just changed the whole game plan and the play sheet when he came in the game against Baltimore? Or was it Chicago? Was it Chicago? Well, he had to come into, did he have to come into both of them? Because he had to come into both because of injury, right? Or did he start Baltimore? But the game against Chicago, he had to come off the bench. It's not like they have a different play sheet. Oh, let's get the Malik Willis easy offense. They had to go with the game plan that they prepared everybody for, and he ran that extremely well. So I don't know. I mean, after a couple years of development, of really learning how to play, somebody with that much talent who looks the part, it's at least interesting based on the arm, based on the mobility. And I just didn't see what you're talking about in 2025. I did in 2024, where they kind of, they just made it very straightforward for him. I think he was playing real quarterback after that. Mr. Mayor, I think that the Cards would listen if we offered a late round pick, even if it made them eat 85 to 90% of the contract. Possible. Definitely possible. Mahal, the team is over the cap. Don't have space for Willis. That's not exact. I mean, okay, so that's true, but they have one of the highest numbers that you can create via restructure. So they can create like $100 million by restructuring and extending guys. So they have cap space. It depends. And if you watch my episode from yesterday where I played around with the tool rebuilding the Vikings roster, you can see where you can restructure all those deals. You could make it work. You could sign him to a contract that didn't have a very high cap hit for the first year and then got bigger progressively and built in some restructures or whatever it is. You can make it work if you want to. I think with this, it depends on how much it's going to be though. Like there is a certain price where you would have to say, okay, we're not going to pay $42 million a year for Malik Willis, but what if it's 2 for 30 and the first year cap hit is like 10? I mean, wasn't that Sam Darnold? That is something they could do. Chizen, watching Aaron Rodgers in that last playoff game, I don't know. He looked shook and done taking those hits. Yeah, that playoff game to me. I remember doing the show after that and just saying, look, this was a good year for Aaron Rodgers and it worked out for him in Pittsburgh. That was a good team and they were competitive and they made the playoffs. But that's the reason that I still think it was better for the Vikings not to have Aaron Rodgers, because it was always going to end like that. It was always going to end with him just taking too many hits and not being able to escape. The mobility is completely gone, even if the arm is not. To me, he's like a guy who should retire and then do a Phillip Rivers when somebody else's quarterback gets hurt, come in and play like 5 games, because he looked like he was aching. Like, remember when he made a big play and his offensive tackle kind of jumped on him and he went to the ground and kind of lost his mind? Like, I can't take hits like that. I mean, he didn't want anybody touching him. So the other thing with Aaron Rodgers is, I mean, I think you can have your complaints about Kevin O'Connell's offense if you want, about, the running game and did he do enough of this or that? We've been through all that. But if you're talking about like a passing game concepts, they work. We've seen them work. Do you want Aaron Rodgers coming in and running his offense? And do you want him throwing the ball away? Do you want him checking it short all the time? He's kind of done that to avoid hits over the last couple of years. So, I think that it would be maybe not the best fit. Mr. Mayor says, if some of y'all think that Kyler Murray is a locker room problem, then unironically want Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, that's just so hard for me to know. I have not seen distinct reporting. And if you have, a link or evidence or whatever that says Kyler Murray and the attitude is a problem, it has been insinuated a number of times. And as I said, smoke and fire, truth to all rumors, like that's fair to say, hey, like there's something going on with that guy and Kingsbury. Although I heard so much less of it last year, Kingsbury, that relationship didn't seem like it was on point. Kingsbury comes back to the league, gets fired again in another year. So I don't know how credible that is exactly. It seemed like Jonathan Gannon and Drew Petzing were on the same page with him in 2024. They actually went into 2025 with some people talking about, well, hey, like this could work out. He gets injured, they lose some games, they decide they're going to tank, and we never really know. I just heard less of that buzz last year with a different coach. And I do know that those things can be circumstantial. Now, he might have some issues. He might have some problems with leadership. He might have some problems with preparation. I don't know. Now, that was one thing that, Daniel Jones praised about the Vikings was Kevin O'Connell's preparation. Can Kevin O'Connell reach him would have to be something that he needs to know before they make a move like that. But we've also seen, for a guy that has these issues, we've seen a very, very high level of performance over stretches of his career. Did want to bring you real quick the FanDuel question of the day. So I want to look at shortly this list of players from Greg Rosenthal of NFL Media and Bill Barnwell. They made a list of tradable players, and I want to go over that and see if we think, hey, maybe the Vikings could. Apparently, the list that they made last year, there were 9 of the guys of the 25 or whatever they made that actually did get traded. So we'll take a look at that. But here is your FanDuel question of the day. Then we'll get back to your comments. What's one move that you do not want to see in free agency or the draft for the NFC North, the rest of the NFC North? You do not want to see the Lions, Packers, or Bears do X. What is that move? And for the Packers specifically, I noticed today they are plus 700, which is third to win the conference for next year on FanDuel. And all 3 teams are, other teams in the NFC North are pretty high in the rankings there. Of course, there's a long way to go, but what move do you not want to see the NFC North make is your FanDuel question of the day. Okay, let me get back to your questions and comments here. Hold on, we'll get that dialed up. There we go. Okay. Runner 87. Am I blind to think that Rodgers has magic left? No, I mean, you're not blind, because when we were just looking at those games, there are some where he was good. There are some where he was legitimately good. And he had that Hail Mary where he threw it 70 yards in the air or something. The arm is clearly still there, but can you get him? Think about the number of times that you saw Vikings quarterbacks sit in the pocket. And this is why Sam Darnold was kind of perfect for Kevin O'Connell. Sit in the pocket. Here comes the pressure. This was 2022 Kirk. Someone's breaking open. You have to hang on to the ball to that very last second, then let it go, and boom, you get hit. And Justin Jefferson gets 27 yards. How many times did we see that, even from Carson Wentz? Do you think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be willing to play that way, to let these concepts really play out in front of him? I mean, I think you'd have to have an unbelievable offensive line. The Steelers did not have a good line, which may have caused a lot of the short throwing. And they were using DK Metcalf as kind of a running back at times. So you've got more route runners. Just seems like, how much magic could there really be? That is the question. Ron says, sorry, Matt, none of them. Well, one of the options was stick with JJ McCarthy. So, I mean, if none of then I got nothing. Then I got nothing for you. Then it's, I guess then you want Joe Burrow, or I don't know. I guess saying none of them is fair because all of them have their drawbacks. Ron adds Malik Willis is interesting, but not under KOC. See, I think, do you want to say it? Is it because he's like a runner? Is that why we say that? I mean, I don't, because it didn't work out for Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs is not a starting quarterback in the league. So Malik Willis, watch those games. He played quarterback. He dropped back. He hit the back foot. He released the ball. He threw at times with anticipation. I mean, if you watch those 2 games, that's a guy playing complete quarterback. That's not a runner. And I also don't think there's a system in the league where the quarterback is just a runner. Not one. I mean, they use Allen that way. They use Jackson that way. Every quarterback has to stand in there and throw it. And Willis showed that he could. I mean, I know that running the ball more effectively is fine, but also let's keep this in mind. As we talk for the entire offseason, I want everybody to pinky swear that they'll keep this in mind, that the top average depth of target quarterbacks made the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship game. the guys who had the most explosive plays, threw down the field the most effectively, Drake May, Matthew Stafford, Sam Darnold, explosive passing, kind of always in forever. There's a reason KOC does it. It's not like he woke up someday and was like, you know what, man? I like when they go shoo and throw it super far down the field. It's because statistically it wins. And everyone wanted quick game, but actually JJ McCarthy's best passing was down the field. I mean, I don't think he's got that wrong. I really don't. And look, running is great, and it's awesome to be able to run to keep the defense sort of at bay. It's still the passing efficiency, which is largely going to drive your success. So you need to have a quarterback that's going to be able to push the ball down the field, has the arm to do it, and play off of a run game. Mr. Mayor, would also be kind of fun to have Kyler and Wentz on the team since they grew up together they grew up as Vikings fans. Oh, I didn't know that Kyler grew up as a Viking fan. That I did not know. Got to wonder if Kyler pushes that a little bit harder to bring a Super Bowl to his childhood team. I did not know Kyler Murray grew up as a Vikings fan. That's interesting. Wonder if is he old enough for that to have been because of Moss? I did not know that. Okay, that's funny. Henrim, we need to sign Super Bowl champion Drew Lock. Hey, look, that's kind of option number 5 is just looking for a backup quarterback. Oak Dog says year off for Carr is very high risk. So the year off thing is weird because on one hand, a year off could be super high risk and the guy could come back and is just a rust bucket and it doesn't work out at all. I could also see another world where it's actually good for him because he's healthy. And these football players, I mean, they push so hard and they do so much to get their bodies ready every year. And they take so much punishment that sometimes a healing year, I think it might be really helpful. I think it certainly was for Randall Cunningham. There's been a few other players that were off for a year and came back and played well. I don't doubt that Derek Carr can still throw the ball and could still have a top 15 type of season. I think that's very plausible based on the way that he was playing for the New Orleans Saints if he's healthy. It's just the only thing that holds me back on Carr is that it really feels like a one-year solution unless he's playing into his late 30s. And it also feels like a one-year solution that reminds me of Kirk Cousins 2022 or 2019 or as this could be good. This could be team in the playoffs. Is there a next notch to that? I don't know that there is. With Kyler Murray, at least you could convince me. And I think that there's probably limitations there, but you could convince me based on his best moments that there's something there that he could get hot in the playoffs and suddenly be unstoppable and win a playoff game and get you. And then you're in the NFC Championship or something like that. That seems like it's a little more possible. You could make the case that Carr would be a better fit for KOC's offense, especially with his ability to throw down the field. Jason, Derek Carr wasn't that good when he was last playing a couple of years ago. Oh, I mean, that's just not true, man. That's just not true. Derek Carr, let's go to the numbers. Let's go find out. Let's go find out what Derek Carr was ranked in 2024. Let's see. All quarterbacks with 20% of dropbacks. Where did he rank? Derek Carr was 8th by PFF. Sam Darnold was 10th in 2024. So the last time the league saw Derek Carr, he was great as a top 10 quarterback. I mean, I think that we just kind of forget these things if we weren't paying really. This is why I love to use the numbers, because if we weren't paying really close attention to a team or a player, we just sort of assume whatever we thought before is what continued to happen. And here was my research on Derek Carr specifically. When he had tough years, and then you went back and look what happened, it was always kind of the same thing. It was didn't have an offensive line, didn't have his number one receiver, or didn't have an offense that he seemed to fit in. And then there are other years where things worked for him that his numbers are very good. And I don't think he has elite quarterback in there, but does he have 2022 Kirk in there? Oh yeah. I mean, he could play at that level. And then you win some games at the end and you're a playoff contender. And like, the Vikings need to be looking to make a serious case for themselves with a great defense, an offensive line that if it's healthy, we know it can play, what I expect to be a revamped running game, and Justin Jefferson. Is that enough to win the Super Bowl? I do not know. I'm not going to be the person who says, well, last year, the Seahawks were 60-1 and no one thought they could do it, because usually the Super Bowl favorites tend to be the ones that get there over history. But there are instances of a complete team adding a quarterback and having success. And Carr is that kind of level of quarterback. I don't think he's quite as good as Sam Darnold, but I don't think if you look at his career, I don't think he's 500 miles away from Sam Darnold. It's probably the most reliable option. X something. You've explained this one to me before, but I can't remember it. Is a trade for a quarterback out of the question, not named Mac Jones or Derek Carr? So I did see today that I think it was Todd McShay may have said that he thinks CJ Stroud is available, but John McClain, who is the longtime reporter for the Texans, put the kibosh on that. Like, no, he's not available. And that is an odd one because Stroud played so well early in his career and then just has never gotten back to that same level. And it's hard to figure out why. Like, he's had some injuries along the way that I wonder if they impacted him. Is the offensive scheme? Is it the offensive line? He sort of plays like he's shaken all the time now and doesn't really have those moments like he did in his first year. And it's clear that the NFL has figured out, and the Vikings did in 2024, that some deception can throw him off. I think is also the other thing too. Like, I don't know that he is the fastest at just taking the snap and seeing everything and identifying. Like, I think he needs time in the pocket. And then if the throw is there, he can really make it. But Stroud, I guess, is the only one that comes to mind. I don't know of too many other options that would be available via trade, except for, of course, Joe Burrow, who is number one on the list if the list was being unrealistic. Mr. Mayor, how do you even consider signing Jones after his injury? Well, I don't know how bad the injury was. We just heard Achilles. So just an example. I mean, Brian O'Neill had a torn Achilles and came back the next season and was fine and played, and it was all right because it was not a completely torn Achilles. I did not see details on this injury and how bad it was or what degree. There's also multiple different kinds of surgeries on the Achilles, one of which has a much harder road than the other. And I mean, look, Cam Akers tore his Achilles and then tore it again and then came back and still played in the NFL as a running back. So it doesn't have to turn into what it looks like with Kirk. But as I know this myself from being kind of the same age as Kirk and Aaron Rodgers, the old body recovers a little slower when you're in your late 30s as opposed to when you're in your late 20s. So I think with Daniel Jones, the expectation is that he should be able to come back and at least be a pocket quarterback. I don't know how much the Colts really even used his mobility like the Giants did. It's worth considering because they know him. There's familiarity there. He's familiar with the offense. And if he played like he did last year, even remotely with the Colts, they could win games. I think that's why he's on the list. But he's not the highest on the list. Shyson says, or Shy Sun. Is it Shy Sun? Maybe it's Chicago Sun. Maybe that's it. Says, I'm going to call it that. Nobody talks about Richardson on the Colts. He could be had. So my thing with Anthony Richardson is definitely not against acquiring Anthony Richardson. If you were, how crazy would this quarterback room be? Let's say the quarterback room was Derek Carr, JJ McCarthy, and Anthony Richardson and Max Brosmer and Brett Rippon, because of course, like Brett Rippon just biding time until he becomes a quarterback coach and then immediately becomes an offensive coordinator. That is Brett Rippon's future. Brett, just keep doing you and you will get there. I promise. But I mean, that would be an interesting, very interesting training camp quarterback room. But the thing about Anthony Richardson is, if they were, now I know that he had the injury and then maybe he would have been eligible to come back at the end. So that's part of the reason that they went with the Phillip Rivers thing. But he can't throw the ball. And he had several years to make progress there and just could not throw. Couldn't execute the short stuff, couldn't execute the on-time stuff. And I believe there is a world with Anthony Richardson where if he was like a Vikings backup, like Geno Smith. Remember Geno went to New York for a while. Think about Geno's arm, right? And then went to Seattle and was a backup for like 5 or 6 years and then got his shot. I totally believe that Anthony Richardson could do it. I just don't think he could do it anytime soon. So if you wanted to trade a conditional 7th for him and say, hey, we're going to bring you in, we're going to teach you how to really play quarterback over 5 years, if it can go on that long, then maybe. Because he is an absolute freak. But, I mean, he just developed none at all when it came to throwing. And there's your cautionary tale. You know, people like to bring up Josh Allen improving, but there's a lot more Anthony Richardsons. But it's a fun idea and a fun conversation. Also, I appreciate you guys, all of you, jumping in here and having a discussion, reacting to the list. I'll get you very shortly. I'll get you that list from Greg Rosenthal of the tradable players, but just running through your reactions to my list. Let's see. Just call you Hines. Willis for sure. Not even close. I like the Willis idea. When you guys hear this podcast, I've referenced a couple times, when you hear the way that the Packers reporter, Jason Wilde, talks about Malik Willis, I think you'll be more sold on the idea. It's just whether he actually wants to do it or not. But this is somebody who worked really hard to get to this point and did not let being put into a backup position ruin his career. He struggled with Tennessee, but he just developed and got better and better. And there's a lot of quarterbacks throughout NFL history who have been a backup or who did not succeed right away, including Sam Darnold, that it had it click eventually. The one thing that threw me off a little bit about Malik Willis is that, and this is where you mention, hey, Matt LaFleur's offense, was this or that when he was in there, did not really throw much over the center of the field when he was in with Green Bay over those 2 years. And that is something that KOC is going to want, is guys who can attack the middle of the field. Now, that doesn't mean he can't. He only threw like 100 passes. But there is a floor because of his scrambling ability. I think there is a floor to Malik Willis that's fairly high. Like, let's say his throwing ends up being only okay, but his running could be prolific. So I'm intrigued. At least, like, there's only 2 guys on the list who you could say if they got them and it worked out, this guy could be here a while. And that's really Murray and Malik Willis. Those are the only 2. Rye Guy says people are going to stop taking you seriously with the Kyler takes. Well, look, here's what I remember from last year. I remember people coming into my comment section and saying people aren't going to take you seriously if you say Sam Darnold should come back. People aren't going to take you seriously if you say that Sam Darnold could be good here when he signs. I don't know. Look, here's what I do with no matter what it is. We just go with the evidence. We look up what guys did. We try to factor everything we can, and then we go with the evidence. Kyler Murray 2024 played in an offense similar to what the Vikings have. He played under center a lot. He ran successfully with play action a lot. They moved him out of the pocket. They ran the football and played off of that, which I know, the Vikings don't do that as much, but they do play action off of it. And he threw very effectively into the intermediate areas of the field where the Vikings, especially with Kirk Cousins, attacked the heck out of defenses. Think about all the times where Justin Jefferson is running a deep in cut and here's the football hitting him right out of his break. How many times did they do that with Kirk Cousins? He really threw the ball in 2024 a lot like Kirk Cousins did in 2022. And if you're going to tell me that you can look at what Vikings receivers have done for quarterbacks over their years and say there's no way that could happen for someone who's won 11 games before in the league, who has last year been a top 12 quarterback, 2024? You're telling me there's no way that could work? I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to take you seriously if you think there's no way that could work. I mean, because to me, that screams like classic Minnesota Vikings reclamation project. But, I don't know if they're going to have the choice to do it. I don't know if they're interested. I don't have any sense for what direction they're going to go. But the argument is there. And that's what we do here. So there's a lot of times, it's just funny throughout my entire career. There's a lot of time. In 2018, do you want me to go through them with you? In 2018, I was on the radio, 1500 ESPN when it used to exist. And I was doing the 2018 draft when they selected Mike Hughes. And I was on the air with Doogie and with Chris Long. And I said to them, do you guys think that the Vikings should have drafted Lamar Jackson? And I put out a poll. And you know what the responses said? No one's going to take you seriously if you're saying they should draft Lamar Jackson. Why would they draft Lamar Jackson? They just signed Kirk. I don't know. Just an idea. Just a thought. Maybe that would have been okay for them. I don't know. He's a 2-time MVP of the league. Maybe it was a good idea. I'm not sure. There's a lot of times where people have said that to me when I bring up different ideas, and sometimes it works out. Not always. Sometimes. DLM. Yeah. So I did an episode with sticktothemodel.com. If you guys want to go watch that, and I kind of blew it. But I also did some things that I think would be quite helpful. I didn't know what to do with the quarterback position on there. You got them a bunch of cap space left over. So I did not. I used every dollar. I signed a bunch of guys. I signed a running back and drafted one in the second round, which was kind of a mistake, but I forgot that I did it. Mahal, get Pro Bowler Joe Flacco. Look, if they get Joe Flacco, then it's option number 5, which is stick with JJ McCarthy. Mr. Mayer thought our running game was fine last year. There were several notable times where they kind of needed it and it wasn't there. There were several notable times where they forgot about it. Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. The odd part about the criticism for KOC and not using the run game enough is that most of the times that was true is actually when Carson Wentz is playing. Like, I was going back through the season and trying to find, like, where was it that maybe I was annoyed or you guys were frustrated with KOC not leaning on the run game enough. And most of the McCarthy games, okay, Atlanta was definitely one of them, that there is a few situations, one at the goal line where he fumbles the ball. The guy is wide open and he just fumbles the snap. But maybe you should just hand it off to Jordan Mason. There's another time where he gets strip sacked. They didn't block a guy. There was a misunderstanding on the offensive line. He was going out of empty. In a game where you're getting killed on the line, you could run the ball there. Philadelphia, 2nd down and 1. There was the deep shot on 3rd and short that I thought was fine, but the 3rd down stuff was problematic. Most of the time, though, when McCarthy was in, they ran the ball fairly effectively and played off of it, and guys were open and they either dropped the ball or were missed, and it didn't work out. But overall, it was a league average run game that they could have made a little bit better. Sean says, I would swap the Joneses. Daniel has had major back surgery, and an Achilles. Mac might be the 15th best quarterback at his peak. I think that is a very fair take. I also feel like Mac Jones has been a backup for the Jaguars and a backup for the 49ers. And while you could say that Sam Darnold came from the 49ers as the backup, I think we all know the difference, and that's what's attached to the right arm. Or to the right side of the body and the arm. It's quite a bit different between him and Sam Darnold for talent-wise, arm talent-wise. It just feels like such a limited upside. Plus, you have to trade for him. Daniel Jones is a UFA. You have to trade for him. And the 49ers might not be willing to give him up pretty easily. Are you giving up, like, I don't know, 2 third-rounders or something for Mac Jones? And it just feels like limited upside. Now, here's one thing that you could make a case for is that there would be a quarterback competition with Mac Jones. This list was if I need a starting quarterback. then this is my list. If I was making a different list, which sounds like a good idea, because that's kind of an off-season plan. I want to make a lot of lists to start the show and then get your guys' reaction. If I was making a list of guys who are only competition for JJ McCarthy, Mac Jones would be number one. If you're talking about guys who are just there to be competition for JJ McCarthy. DLM says, hated the Kyler Murray route, but if we can pull him with the offset contract, we could be a possible top 10 offense. I think that too. I don't think that he would be the number one. I think there's too much inconsistency there, but could you crack the top 10? Certainly. If you can run the ball a little more effectively, you can. There will be weeks where you're like, what? But also with Kirk, there were weeks where you were like, what? With Derek Carr, look at his game log. In my article, I showed Derek Carr's best season in his game log by ESPN's QBR, which is a 1 to 100. And it's like 90, 10, 50, 90, 10. Like there's a lot of quarterbacks that are up and down. But if you're a scrambling short quarterback who's up and down, it really sticks out a lot more. Shy Son, Kyler Murray was going to be playing Red Dead Redemption instead of practicing in the playbook. I mean, that's what I mean about, didn't we learn anything from the seeing ghosts thing? Didn't we learn anything from that? All this stuff, where did it come from? Why are people putting it out there? Why was it put out there? Think about that. So Steve Keim could cover his butt for the contract if it didn't work out and say, oh, it was because he played too many video games. I mean, I'm not saying this stuff's not true. I just always wonder, when things like that get out there, is it people trying to save themselves by pointing the finger at somebody else? RJ, Kyler's got talent if he's locked in is the question. I mean, that for sure is the question. I mean, is it a situation where he can't lead a locker room? Is it a situation where he can't commit to being as dialed in, as you said, or as prepared as possible? Or was it a butting of heads with Cliff Kingsbury specifically, who again has been fired by Washington since? He did a good job with Jaden Daniels in his first year, but just saying that it's not like Cliff Kingsbury had this incredible run of success in the NFL. So was it a conflict there, or was it just that their rosters were never that great and it's not a great franchise? It's not run that well. They, hire and fire coaches left and right. I don't know. Could be all those things. Could be that Murray is not the most committed. Could be that, he does have other interests. I don't really know, because I don't know Kyler Murray very well. And if there's any steam on that, or maybe, I'll get somebody on the show that can speak a little bit more to it. I just always kind of slam on the brakes when people present me with these sort of jingles. It's like a little tagline of the seeing ghost thing. It's going to stick with me probably forever. You put a little label on somebody, video game guy, can't ever win. I don't know, man. A lot of people play video games in the NBA and in the NFL and in Major League Baseball, and golfers. And I don't know. A lot of people play video games. They're out there. So Corey says, kind of think that Derek Carr probably fits the bill with what KOC wants to do more than the other guys. He is more of your prototypical pocket passer. Yep. The rhythm and timing is a Derek Carr thing. Yep. I think that is true. DLM, I think Carr feels less risky. I don't think that he is less risky than Kyler, because Kyler's younger and also didn't retire due to injury. I mean, so there's risk with both of them. But if you're talking about someone who is much more of a plug and play, hey, he's going to just drop back, throw where you're supposed to throw. But also Derek Carr's not going to make you right if you're wrong, which Kyler Murray can. So there's a little bit back and forth there. Dan says, don't we need to be careful about stats? A quarterback who's throwing against prevent defense because their team is getting blown out shouldn't really count as much. Yeah, of course, always there's context to all stats. I'm not sure who you're referring to there. If we were looking at Kyler Murray's stats, they went 8-9. Like, they weren't getting blown out of games, and just, this wasn't a Jacoby Brissett situation. The year that we're talking about, 2024, they were a very competitive team. In fact, they should have been 9-8, but they totally blew it against the Vikings because of a bad coaching decision to kick a field goal to go up 6 points. If you recall, instead of going for a fourth down, they were this close to beating the Vikings and having a plus 500 record for that season. So I don't think that Kyler Murray would be, and also they were winning a ton in 2021 when he had his best statistical season. Who would be that guy on that list? I don't know that anybody would. I mean, Derek Carr's team was 500 when he had the big stats. Aaron Rodgers played for a winning team. Daniel Jones played for a winning team. I mean, Malik Willis's couple of games were under big circumstances. So I don't know that there's anybody on that list, but of course we're always trying on the show to contextualize the stats. And when we talk about those last 4 games for McCarthy, they deserve context, right? Carl says Kyler gets sacked a lot. Well, you know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to go see if that's true. Scrambling quarterbacks are always going to get sacked a little bit more. Let's go find out if that's true. Let's see. What should we look at? Sack total is not great. But let's just see. How many times was he sacked in 2024? He had 30 sacks, which was the 18th most in the league. Caleb Williams, 68. Sam Darnold was the 4th most sacked quarterback that year. CJ Stroud was 2nd. Geno Smith was 3rd. You know what? That would be the guy that I forgot. Just realized that. Forgot Geno Smith on the list. Where would I put Geno? I would put him that is the guy that I forgot, that I left off the list. I was sitting here thinking, as I was reading it, did I forget somebody? Who else would be there? Anyway, I'm trying to think of where I would place him. So Murray was 18th in total sacks. How about pressure to sack ratio? 14th best pressure to sack ratio. To me, none of those numbers are disturbing. If maybe he had another season where he got sacked a lot, but those numbers aren't disturbing to me. Those are average type of sack numbers. Where would we put Geno Smith? Is he ahead of Daniel Jones? Is he behind Daniel Jones? Is he maybe right on the line ahead of Mac Jones because he's got the big arm? But maybe he's who should have been number 5 / stick with JJ McCarthy, because it could go both ways. I mean, if you bring in Geno Smith, how about that? This is the list of starters. I don't know if I've got Geno Smith super high on a list of starters. I might not even have him in the top 8 of list of starters, but guys to compete with JJ McCarthy, he would probably be number 1 or 2. So Mac Jones at the top, Geno Smith right there to compete with McCarthy. But the way that Geno played last year was just absolutely horrible. So I can't say that I think he'd be a great option. Would he be higher than Rodgers and Kirk? Yeah. Maybe right behind Mac Jones. I knew I was missing one on the official. It's the official list though, so he's not on the list. But he should be. He should probably be in that if we're putting them into categories. The top categories, I believe all 3 of these guys could get him to the playoffs. The middle category is just keep JJ McCarthy because we hate everything else. And the bottom category would be veteran old guys that I think might have something left in the tank. I mean, Geno Smith is old. It's 36. So now I have regrets of forgetting to put Geno Smith on there, but he also gets sacked a ton. What are Sam and Kirk's average depth of target under KOC? Well, let's go find out. Let's go see. I believe now, let's see. So Darnold, here we can look at Darnold. His was very high in 2024. His was the 5th highest in 2024. Let's see where Kirk was in I think Kirk was actually very low in 2023. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was one of the lowest in the league. Let's see. Yeah, Kirk was the 13th lowest. So where would that rank? That would be 32nd out of 45. Yeah. So that really shows you that there have been different versions of how people have played quarterback under KOC. So the idea, I don't think that he changes his offense, but I think you can play quarterback a little safer and a little get the ball out quicker if you want to, or I'm going to take all the shots downfield. And that's where you see Kirk and Darnold at the opposite ends. But if you did have a Derek Carr, who's much more of a get it out quick guy, or you had Murray, who's more of the intermediate passer, you can do that. You don't have to throw it 40 yards downfield all the time. Good question. Really good question there. Dobbs was athletic too. How did that work? Can we just do a thing on the show? Never mention Josh Dobbs ever again. Josh Dobbs is a career backup who's like 3-12. I mean, he's just, he was available to be traded for in the middle of the season to toss into an offense that he had never worked with before. And all the other players had been working on that offense forever. And honestly, he played fine for most of those games, except for Chicago. There are some regrets there with some things Kevin O'Connell did. I thought that lost them some games. Sure. But I mean, Josh Dobbs cannot be compared to any of the quarterbacks that I just named. I mean, Malik Willis played much better in his time than Josh Dobbs has ever played during his career. And certainly he's nowhere near Kyler Murray. I mean, not even remotely in the stratosphere of a former number 1 overall draft pick. Just not similar. If you don't want any quarterback with any athleticism at all, I don't know what to tell you. If you look around the NFL, there's a lot of them. So yeah, I mean, Dobbs is just, it should just never be brought up as like, oh, they couldn't adjust to Dobbs or something. Like, he's Josh Dobbs. Should they have now in like, look, should they in hindsight have really been a little more like, safe with Josh Dobbs, not trying to pitch him a ball from TJ Hawkinson, not putting the offense on his shoulders, but they couldn't run. You know, they had Alexander Madison and Ty Chandler. They couldn't really run with Dobbs was their quarterback. So they kind of had to do it that way, but there's just no comparing it to any of these guys. Dwight, what's the latest on Carson Wentz? Well, he had shoulder surgery and that's the last we've heard of him. I assume he wants to continue playing. I think he said he did, but I would assume that it's not as a Vikings backup. I would assume. Bill says going back to Tarkenton days, fans are never happy with quarterback because Green Bay has nailed it for decades. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. I don't disagree that Green Bay for Vikings fans is annoying because of the amount of success that they've had with their quarterback position. But I also think when I went to training camp, I think it was 2017. Yeah, 2017. Went to training camp in Mankato. The last year was in Mankato. And you looked up in the stands and the number of people that had Teddy Bridgewater jerseys, they were everywhere. And then you go last year to training camp, even when Sam Darnold is your quarterback, you look around and you see all these JJ McCarthy jerseys. I guarantee you that when they drafted Christian Ponder, everybody went and bought Christian Ponder jerseys thinking this is going to be our franchise quarterback. Because it's not just that Green Bay succeeded. It's just that fans want somebody to love. They want someone to embrace. They want someone to have year after year after year. This guy's going to give us 10 shots to win a Super Bowl. And there's going to be some years that are great. And there's going to be some years that are bad or not as good. But if you've got him, you got a chance every year. Like that's what they've been looking for forever. And instead, every single year, on February 16th, Purple Insider's been talking about what they're going to do at quarterback. I mean, let's go through it real quick since we've got time, since this is a live stream and there's no rules. My first year's 2016, Teddy gets hurt right away. So that throws them into quarterback disarray. 2017, we know it's going to be Bradford, but we're talking about, well, where are they going to go from there? Keenum comes on, plays like he does. Guess what the conversation is? Well, what are they going to do at quarterback now? 2018, they signed Kirk. After 2019, his contract is up after the following year. So they have a decision to make. Guess what we're talking about? Well, are they going to keep Kirk long term? They sign him to an extension. Shortly after that, his coach is fired. Guess what we're talking about? Are they going to keep Kirk? Then they don't sign Kirk to an extension. Guess what we're talking about? Are they going to keep Kirk? 2023, he's a free agent. What are they going to do at quarterback? They signed Darnold. Guess what we're talking about last year? Like, it's exhausting. It's exhausting for Vikings fans to constantly be looking at other teams' quarterbacks and going, I can sort of see it. I think, even with Kyler, like, look, I've presented this as the best case, but there's downside. The downside is he's been hurt. The downside is he's been inconsistent. There's downside to every one of these guys. And there always is. Like, when they signed Darnold, the thing that was different was like, well, this guy's going to be a 1-year bridge. And then it's going to finally be the guy. And I remember saying to, I don't know, Drew McGarry or somebody, maybe Jeremiah Searles, like, it's finally different. It's finally different. And then it was very, very quickly back to the same. So that I think is the lifelong frustration. Drew says, GM Matt Cincinnati offer Joe Burrow for McCarthy, Addison, 26 and 27 first round draft picks. Are you in? Well, I am, but they don't need Jordan Addison for one. They've already paid 2 wide receivers. Replace that with Jonathan Grenard, and that was my fake offer for them. Am I in to give up 2 firsts, Jonathan Grenard and JJ McCarthy for Joe Burrow? Yeah. That's yes, 100%. Because I think with Joe Burrow, you can seriously compete for a Super Bowl. We were talking about earlier on FanDuel that the Green Bay Packers are plus 700 to win the conference. That's the 3rd best odds. What would the Vikings be if they got Joe Burrow? And that's a FanDuel question of the day for you. They would be probably the favorites in the NFC immediately if they got Joe Burrow. So yeah, I would do that. I would. And you know what? If it blows up and he gets hurt, oh well, I went down trying. Yes, I would do that. Brian, how about a pie chart of the possible 1-year costs for the quarterbacks? I'm not sure. Oh, I see. Okay. You're giving me, I was going to say, how do I do a pie chart out of that? 5 million, 5 to 15, 15 to 25, 25 plus. Still not 100% sure how to do a pie chart out of that. But if we go through each guy, like Derek Carr, I think you could get in a trade where New Orleans has to take the dead cap. Kyler Murray, same thing. They're not going to do it otherwise, or they just release him and then you could sign him for whatever you want. Daniel Jones, I think, would be looking at 25 plus, but you can always structure that in a way where the first year is not that much. I would say the same thing for Malik Willis, who's probably looking for $30 million. I think Willis is going to look for a Sam Darnold type contract, but I don't know if he's going to get it because it's such a small sample size. Dwight says, how did the Vikings not see McCarthy's weaknesses before the draft? They did, but the thing about every prospect, so if we go through, just for example, let's go through a couple prospects for the Vikings that have worked out and some that it didn't. It's always a range of outcomes based on the guy's skills coming out of college. So take Justin Jefferson. The rap on Justin Jefferson was this guy cannot separate off the line of scrimmage, so he has to be a slot receiver. Go look at the scouting reports. That's what it says. Now, what they got wrong is that, well, one, being a slot receiver in the NFL in 2020 through 26 is not a bad thing. You can move guys, or they move everybody around. Look at JSN. I think he was dubbed as one of those slot. Oh, he's just going to be a slot or something. Like, you just move these guys around. You use condensed sets, you use whatever it takes. And then I think they also didn't realize that Justin Jefferson would be one of the great contested catch guys in the NFL. So even if he didn't have, when you look at those separation metrics, his are not unbelievable. They're just good, but he catches everything most of the time. This year, there were a few instances, but his drop rate still finished basically the same. The point just being that there was always a range of outcomes, though. If Justin Jefferson came into the league and was not able to separate and didn't have the right offense that was going to move him around and get him those opportunities early on, I mean, I think a guy like Jefferson probably succeeds regardless because of his skills, that no one is holding this guy back. But, we did see this year, it wasn't the same. If he had not been able to improve and wasn't a super psycho competitor and wasn't high intelligence and all those things, he might not have made it. He might have just been another guy who couldn't get off the line of scrimmage like Laquan Treadwell. Laquan Treadwell and Justin Jefferson had a similar criticism coming out of college. One of them is the best receiver in the league. Another of them, didn't work out. So with JJ McCarthy, you look at any of those Vikings picks where, hey, if this guy has it click, how about Trey Waynes or something, right? Like Trey Waynes turned out to be an okay corner. I thought he was a good starter, but there was always like, can he get his head around and make plays on the football? There's always some question with any sort of cornerback, quarterback, tackle, whatever. Darisaw, there was a question about, does Darisaw play with enough nastiness to be an NFL star? I mean, clearly he's proven that he does, but if he didn't, then we would have never seen the full, you know what I'm saying? So with McCarthy, it's like they knew what the weaknesses were, and what they thought was that they could work with these and work on the throwing technique, that they identified the reasons why. And in the interim, as they were working through those techniques, he would be behind Sam Darnold. They never got an opportunity to do that, but that's what they thought. He would spend an entire year behind Sam Darnold working on throwing technique. He would spend an entire year learning more about football and practicing every single day, like Malik Willis when he's getting better, or Jordan Love when he's getting better. But just like Trey Lance, Anthony Richardson, he's been hurt so much. When was he supposed to do this? So it's hard to fix your weaknesses when you can't practice and you can't play. But especially, I think, can't even practice, you can't even develop behind the scenes. So they knew what they were. They thought they could work with them. And then, hey, he's going to make a couple of plays a game to make up for some inaccuracy. They knew that there was going to be some inaccuracy. But I think what they didn't fully realize is when he got out there that you can practice it all day long, but you're not going to get enough practice time to fix that when you actually get out there with just a summer or just a spring. Like, it's going to take a long time. And that would be an argument for bringing in one of these quarterbacks for a 1-year type of deal to maybe see if he can catch up from that standpoint. I mean, it's an interesting question for sure. Abe, any chance to get to the Super Bowl? It has to be Murray, maybe Carr. That's why they're high on the list. Yep. And we don't know what Willis is, but I'd be interested in finding out. But that's right. That's why Murray's the top of the list. Is there any guy that you could close your eyes and envision he's playing in the divisional round against whoever? Could you do that for Rodgers? Maybe, but you really have to really think deep. Could you see it for Kirk? No. Could you see it for Murray? Where it clicks and he loves Minnesota and him and KOC get on the same page and then he's scrambling around and making big time throws and stuff. Yeah, you could see that. You could see that. Jay says, Matthew, who are the 2 players we released or trade to free up cap space? There's really 3. When I was going through my thing on that website, the 3 guys that I released were Javon Hargrave, Aaron Jones, and Ryan Kelly. At least 2 of those guys are going to be released. I don't know about Javon Hargrave. I mean, I would be very surprised if they didn't release Aaron Jones based on his cap hit and how much money they make from him, and they just need more explosiveness in the backfield. They could work something out with him, which is like, I don't hate that, but they need somebody back there. If you're doing that, you need a high draft pick, and it would have to be very minimal money for Jones to come back. I think overall it was a success to sign Aaron Jones the first time. It was a pretty big success. The second time, it did not work out the same way. Dwight says, how does some teams win consistently with drafting and the Vikings never get it right? Well, they don't never get it right because they had the 2015 draft where they entirely built their 2017 core foundation through. Really, when you look at 2013 is where they get, so 2012, well, think about this. 2012 is Harrison Smith. 2013 is Xavier Rhodes. 2014 is Anthony Barr. 2015 is Danielle Hunter, Stephon Diggs, Trey Waynes, and Eric Kendricks. So it's not that they've never done it. I think you mean like the current regime has not done it. The reason the current regime has not done it is because the 2022 draft that was meant to fill a lot of problems blew up in their face. And then they were left with a lot of talent on their football team and a lot of cap space that was opening up in the future. So they decided to make a lot of moves to win now type of moves to fill through free agency, to trade away draft picks, to move up in the draft to get Dallas Turner, to not move back in the draft at any point, to pick Jordan Addison, to pick Donovan Jackson, right? And all of those are kind of win now type moves. And if you do that and succeed with your free agency and succeed with your trades, then that's a way to build for sure. But if it requires giving away a lot of draft capital, it's unlikely you're going to be able to build your team through the draft. So when I look at the Vikings overall drafting and with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, they actually performed at about the level you'd expect for where they drafted. The other thing is too, that a team like Seattle that builds through the draft, they also had multiple top 10 draft picks. The Vikings have had 0 top 10 draft picks since 2014. Other than J.J. McCarthy at 10th, which they had to trade up to get, so still a 0. I mean, that's why. And when you have these great free agent classes, then you're probably not letting guys go or not getting comp picks, which is another thing too. Like if you, and I know I get annoyed sometimes with the comp thing, but if you like always are signing guys and never letting guys go, you're not going to get a lot of comp picks. You know what's interesting to me is that the people who don't like Kyler Murray bring no evidence to the case. I mean, there is evidence against him. Like, I mean, like his numbers and his performance, but it's always just like sucks. Like, I don't understand that. That to me makes me think it's more right to say Kyler Murray should be at the top. Dwight, offensive line has to get better to protect the quarterback. That's very true, but this offensive line is in good shape. I would assume they're going to extend Brian O'Neill. Will Fries, I think, could get better with a full offseason. Donovan Jackson is promising, and Christian Darrisaw's got to be healthy. The offensive line has a range of outcomes, though, because they're going to need a center. I've been looking at Luke Fortner from the New Orleans Saints as a potential guy to bring in, but if they can't get a free agent there, I don't know what you do. So that's a huge concern, is the center position. And then who do you have as your swing tackle? You need to have someone who is your in case of emergency that's better than Justin Skule. Justin Skule was fine at the end of the season, but when they really needed him the most, he did not have a good time over there at left tackle. You need somebody who's a little bit better than he is in order for them to be in good shape for the offensive line. But if you have injuries like they did last year at the beginning of the season, no one's offensive line is going to be good when you're on your third guard or whatever, fourth guard. DLM answering the FanDuel question of the day. Do not want to see the Lions get a star pass rusher. That's a good one. Another good answer from Corey. Do not want to see the Bears draft a stud running back. That's a very good one because they had, DeAndre Swift last year. Jay, do not want to see any NFC North team get Max Crosby, especially the Lions or Bears. Deontay says Aaron Nagler is very afraid of Malik Willis becoming a Viking. See? And if you listen to my podcast tomorrow with Jason Wilde, I think that there's some minds that are going to get changed there about Malik Willis. The Packers people are very high on him. Carr is horrible. See, this is the thing. It's like, most of the arguments are just Carr is not horrible. Carr most recently was quite good. It's that how good can he really be after we did the Kirk? Wasn't Kirk Cousins doppelganger over all the years of the AFC? Wasn't that Derek Carr? So doesn't it feel like you're just sort of jumping back on the same carousel that you were on for 6 years? That's your argument against Carr. It's just coming in and be like, these guys stink. Like that's not an argument. If you said Murray is too inconsistent because of his size, that if teams do a good job of taking away his throwing lanes, that he can be limited, then you're right. If you say Derek Carr and his inconsistency and his ups and downs are similar to the Kirk coaster, and the fact that he's not a great athlete, not a scrambler, limits his upside, that's a fine argument. Those are good arguments. I can help you if you need them. Why don't we try using those? Denny says, think Geno might be the most realistic. Yeah. That's a mistake there by me. But I think that Geno still falls into the category. He falls into the category for me. This is the list of need a starter. I don't know that Geno Smith is necessarily somebody you're acquiring to be your starter if you think you need a starter. Although I did throw in stick with JJ. It was an oversight. But I still wouldn't put him that high on the list. I only like the Geno Smith idea because he can compete with McCarthy. And if he doesn't win the job, you're fine with having him as the backup. But I mean, you talk about recent performance that was tough. And my issue with Geno Smith, here's a reason that I might not even have him on the list anyway, even though I wouldn't mind him as competition for McCarthy, is because he doesn't play at all like KOC wants to play. KOC wants to have a lot of under center. They have 2 tight ends that they pay a lot of money, assuming Hockenson is back. They're clearly going to want to run the ball under center. And when sometimes it's talked about like Seattle and the Geno Smith thing, when they hired Clint Kubiak, who runs a similar offense to KOC, it was clear they couldn't bring back Geno. He's never under center. So they would have to do a lot of different things for Geno that I don't think really fit this team all that well. So he's somewhere on the list, but I don't know if he would be that high. QB room of McCarthy, Richardson, and Levis. Not a single guy knows how to act like a pro there. That's actually part of, the concern with McCarthy being the franchise guy is that, Richardson and Levis both kind of had some of those issues. Asa, good to see you, buddy, says KOC would kill for a guy like Jordan Love, whereas LaFleur secretly loves Willis' potential. Trade for Jordan Love. The big arm, certainly. I do wonder about, precision passing with Willis. He clearly showed that he could throw the ball. But, we talk all the time about how KOC wants the right amount of touch and the perfect timing and everything else. Willis showed some timing, but is he going to be as precise as someone who's not like that experienced? Franchise tag Carson Wentz is very funny. Denny, it would be fun to watch Willis beat the Packers. I'd be excited to see what Willis was like. Now that's a different one. Should do more of that GM website. Yeah. Remind me what that is. We get that. Maybe we could do another one on Thursday after I just did an episode of that and try a different plan. We'll just try different plans. But I think we talked about the other day with Dane Mizutani. I asked Dane, what do you think would be the highest fan approval of any of these moves? And he said that the Kirk one would get high approval. And then as soon as people saw Kirk back, it would have lower approval, which is funny. That Kyler would have low approval, but then once people saw him play, they'd be like, oh yeah, Kyler, a former number 1 overall pick. He's got some talent. So it would go up. I think Malik Willis would have the highest fan approval of any, because it represents something that maybe this can be your guy, not just like this 1 year roll the dice. Maybe he's got something left in the tank type of decision. I think that's the one that people would be the most excited about. Dwight says Vikings are so predictable in the run game. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they were. Right. They were. And I think this is where that commitment has to be real this time for KOC, because you've just got to have a more dynamic run game, even if it's not way better in terms of its actual yards per carry production, but just a little bit less, like you said, predictable, or a little more on the detail, a little but I really think that it kind of comes down to with the run game. When they had their offensive line healthy, it was better. I think it also comes down to that guy in the backfield that we have talked so much about. It's KOC, it's KOC, it's KOC. But, they go get Aaron Jones. That's a guy who was on the back half of his career. The explosiveness wasn't the same. They had Alexander Mattison as RB1. They never wanted to use Ty Chandler pretty much ever. Who have they had in the backfield that you would say, like, hey, yeah, Seattle, they run the ball. They drafted Kenneth Walker in the second round, and he was a high draft pick. And they invested in that position. And everyone says you should never invest in that position. But then you look at the top runners and you're like, well, maybe you do need to invest in that position and not just like a free agent Aaron Jones type signing, but a draft pick. I've wanted to, Dalvin Cook, when he gets here, averages 5 yards a carry for the first half of the season, then falls apart. The same thing for Aaron Jones. Those guys are just on the back halves of their career. They need someone who's young and explosive. And if he isn't perfect with the playbook, to get over it like they never could with Ty Chandler. Blind Shadow says, no Geno, pick Levis over Geno. Yeah. Mr. Maris is hilarious. He forgot Geno and no one cared. Yeah, because it's not a very favorable option. The only thing about Geno is that it would probably look a lot like Jameis Winston, where he would throw 30 touchdowns and 30 picks and get sacked 50 times. He's just been such a sack magnet over the last number of years, and his downfield passing is phenomenal. And that's why the PFF grade, I think it's pumped up a little bit because of those big time throws. It would happen with Winston too. There's a lot of credit to those tight window throws, but then you realize like, oh man, this guy's pumping it into tight windows a lot and taking a lot of risk. You know who it would look like? I think with Geno Smith, I think it would look like Nick Mullins. It'd be like stronger arm Nick Mullins. Tons of sacks, tons of mistakes, tons of yards for Justin Jefferson, crazy games. It might be fun, but I think they're like an 8-win team with Geno Smith. And he's also on the older side. He's taken 105 sacks over the last 2 years. It might be more compelling to have Kirk Cousins and play a run first offense. I actually now don't have that many regrets. I kind of like the other options, unless you were saying they walk into training camp with JJ McCarthy as QB1 and Geno QB2. That would be fine. But I don't like the fit really at all. And I don't like where he's at with his career. So yeah, you're right about that not a single person said, hey, why don't you have Geno Smith on here? Russell says if Derek Carr is healthy, he's an easy choice for a guy like KOC who will be coaching for his job. Yeah, I like the fit with Derek Carr. I definitely, hey, this is the thing. People bring up Kyler Murray's leadership issues, but I had Nick Underhill on the other day who covers the Saints. He said that some Saints players were trying to fight Derek Carr on the sideline at times. I don't know that his leadership has always gotten A+ from everybody either. X large, trade JJ to lose either way. If they trade McCarthy, then they're definitely going to need some sort of option like that. Jay said, why would Kyler, Carr, or Willis want to come to Minnesota, especially if JJ was a first-round pick? It's part of the discussion. They would be saying, you're starting. McCarthy is not starting. And there you go. It would be very much like Daniel Jones going to Indianapolis. Like, dude, yeah, you're in a competition. Sure you are. You're the starter. We need you to start over Anthony Richardson. That's what it would be like. If they come here, then you know that it's over. Jim, that's a cool story that you met KOC, that Monday night game with Dobbs. That was the game where I did think KOC missed the boat with the way he handled Dobbs. They were actually running fairly successfully against Chicago, just kept having him drop back, and he was off. Denny says, remember how much we used to talk about Treadwell? That's because busts are always so fascinating to people. They're not as much to me because I feel like I've seen a lot of them, and like you insert your joke there, but guys come into the NFL with so much hype out of the draft, and it's like, well, sometimes they don't work out. DLM Kyler would roll out and chuck it deep to Hopkins. It's got KOC written all over it. The numbers of him throwing to DeAndre Hopkins are compelling. E. Miller, I would have bet 6-month mortgage on Treadwell not lasting 10 years in the league after he left the Vikings. Oh, I know. But the thing about Treadwell is that I think when he came into the league, his attitude was not great. And eventually, though, it was like he was willing to play special teams and kind of do whatever it took. And yeah, he's carved out a career as a number 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Phenom says it's scary that these are our quarterback options. I mean, this is the position you're in. They've been worse throughout the years. I mean, that's part of the argument is like there's been worse quarterbacks who have had good years for the Vikings than Kyler Murray, including Sam Darnold, who I think was 21-35 when he got here. Case Keenum, who hadn't won anything when he got here. I don't know. Having seen these things in front of me, I'm never willing to dismiss the possibility when it's someone else's quarterback. Denny says people will hate Murray until game 1, where Jets goes for 196 yards. They will have, if Kyler Murray came here and went 10-7, it would be 10 games that were breathtaking and 7 that were terrible, and there's no other outcome. Yeah. Blind Shadow talking about, them taking Kellen Mond. Well, I'm not too worried about taking him over Davis Mills. Milton Williams was a guy who the numbers loved in that draft. That was, that's the thing. Kwesi also that's another thing about like why they couldn't build through the draft. Kwesi got pinned with bad drafting, and sure, like that's fairly accurate. But the drafting before that, so they get Darisaw and Jefferson, 2 absolute superstars, but the rest, nothing to speak of. And that 2021 draft outside of Darisaw is an unbelievable disaster. Denny says that Geno shouldn't be high, overlooked your list. Preference. Yeah, I mean, right. So no one seemed too upset that I forgot to put Geno on the list. And I'm not too sad about it either. Adrian says, why do we keep saying this quarterback doesn't fit KOC's offense? How many of these guys realistically fit his style that the Vikings can get? Why can't he just adapt? Well, see, I think more do than it looks like. I mean, look at like LaFleur's offense has similar roots as KOC's, and you go to Drew Petzing, who was with Kevin Stefanski here, similar roots to KOC. These guys actually aren't that far off. Clint Kubiak had a very similar passing game with Sam Darnold to KOC. It was a little bit different because it built off the run more, but in terms of how they actually threw the ball, under center, play action, used bigger personnel, leaned on one wide receiver, like there's a lot of similarities. So I think that that's the frustration about Kyler is, like 2024 Kyler is much closer to a regular quarterback than he had ever been before in his career, where he was just a scramble monster. Jared says, every day I like the Vikings situation less and less. Well, when you look at the other teams in the NFC North and you look at the NFC layout for next year, there really isn't an option that makes you think, okay, this is it for them. They are going to get this guy and take it to the moon. But in Vikings land, you just never know. And let's not forget that number 5 on my list was just sticking with JJ McCarthy. So, and you could even move that maybe above Daniel Jones, because I'm not sure I believe he has a crazy high ceiling. But that doesn't feel great either, because it's just such a big risk going with someone who struggled as much as he did. Mr. Mayor says, every day I feel happier we're one day closer to an option not named JJ McCarthy. I mean, it was a tough watch. There's no way around it. It was a very tough watch for the entire season. And it just never really, the game against Dallas was pretty good. And I would give him credit for that, but it never had any sort of consistency to it. And then the injuries, 4 times injured in 10 games, is just so tough. And that's where it really makes you think that they would go to someone else, because you just can't expect him to be healthy after all the times that he got injured and sort of played in a way like that. Brian wants Rico Dowdle as RB1. Yeah, I think Rico Dowdle's a good complimentary running back. I liked what he did last year with Carolina. I think he's kind of limited, maybe streaky, but he can play. Let's go. The stadium steps. Yeah. Let's see. Hamza says, Albert Breer said today, Cardinals will most likely be releasing Kyler Murray. Yes. That's where I've been, Hamza. That's where I've been all off season is, yeah, they're going to try to get it out there. Like, hey, we'll take some of his contract if you give us an asset. And everyone's going to be like, just release him. Yep. DK says, what quarterback hasn't been in the league 10 years fits into KOC's scheme? I mean, Sam Darnold had not been in the league for 10 years. It actually, it was different with that. It's just, look, it breaks people's brains when someone doesn't play well as cornerback or as quarterback. It just breaks people's brains. You start looking for every other reason that it could be wrong. It's got to be the scheme. He just didn't do the scheme thing. What the heck? He didn't adjust it. It must be wrong. The guys were open. I've used that completion percentage over expected stat. They just were not hit with the ball. So I don't think it's the scheme. I don't think you have to play in the league for 10 years, but I do think that if you've never played in the league before and you hadn't played in 500 days because of an injury, that it was a lot to ask to come in and learn the whole thing. That I think is true. Sean says, still notice our system getting play call into the huddle, lineup and motions down to 3-4 seconds. Yes, that was an issue that eventually Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins were able to resolve. But last year with McCarthy, couldn't, I always say this. I always say, like talking about Willis, when I was watching him play, he got everybody lined up is kind of where I start with that. Because if someone's having trouble with it, it's really apparent. That's why they had to dumb down the offense. What about Winston? That's a hard pass for me. They did get Cam Bynum and Josh Metellus in the draft and develop them eventually. That's true. Jared, do you think KOC would survive an awful year? And they were lined up to draft another quarterback. It's just in the way that the NFL is operating right now, it's very hard to see. Because in February, and I'll always stay with this, I don't think it's a good idea for teams to just fire coaches all the time. I just do not. I just do not. Do you trust KOC drafting the next quarterback? I'm gonna tell you something that I think that I will reveal 2 hours into this podcast. This is what I truthfully believe about quarterbacks in the draft. I think that if you, Jay, me, Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and my wife all got to pick quarterbacks for 10 years and circle the successes and failures when they were drafted, who do we think is going to work out, who's not? I think we'd all perform similarly. That's what I really think. I think that based on the history and how badly some guys have missed, there's a video going around Twitter of Jamarcus Russell throwing the ball, and everyone's like, oh my God, I forgot. Like, yeah, Jamarcus Russell was an unbelievable prospect and didn't work out. And so was Ryan Leaf. And then there's guys who, like Bo Nix, who's not an unbelievable prospect, that got his team to the AFC Championship game. You just don't know. Lamar Jackson was 32nd overall. You just don't know. If teams knew that Jordan Love would be this good after developing for him for a couple years, they would have drafted him a heck of a lot higher than where they were. And with Jalen Hurts, they let him drop to the second round. I mean, think about right now. Jalen Hurts didn't have a great year, but imagine drafting Tua over Jalen Hurts, a guy who's capable of reaching the Super Bowl twice with the right team. I truly think that the quarterback position is so complex. It's not, if you told me, hey, the Vikings linebacker coach versus you drafting linebackers, I'd be like, oh, he'll do much better than me. Because, and not that it's not every position is random and complex and everything, but he would know a lot more detail, a lot more background, a lot more things that it takes as a linebacker to succeed to the granular level. But with quarterbacks, look at Murray, look at Derek Carr, look at the circumstances that have pushed these guys around in the wind. 1 year Kyler Murray's an elite quarterback and everyone's talking about, oh my gosh, he's top 10 now. And then the team falls apart. Cliff Kingsbury loses control. Steve Keim gets fired. They have to, he tears his ACL, and all of a sudden we got people in the comment section saying he's terrible. I mean, no one can figure out the quarterback position, even when these guys are pros, much less coming out of the draft. So would I trust KOC to draft the next quarterback? Probably. Because I think that he's got an equal chance of anybody else. And I really don't think that O'Connell has mishandled JJ McCarthy. I think he's done everything he could in the short period of time. I think he overestimated, and they as a franchise, because it was everyone's decision, not one person. I will never put it on anyone. It was on any one person. It was on this regime. They overestimated his ability to coach up JJ McCarthy's weaknesses. And they assumed that because they were them and they had all the supporting cast and everything else, that was going to be the major dictating factor. But sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And if Kyle Shanahan can't pick the right quarterback and then find one in the 7th round that could go to the Super Bowl, then this thing is way too random for any of us to think that we've got a real handle on. So I think, if Kevin O'Connell, let's say they have a tough year and they go 9-8 again, but they make the playoffs this time, and the Wilfs are happy with the job that he did, and they're drafting another quarterback, I'm perfectly fine with him picking that other quarterback. I don't think that anyone is actually, over a long period of time, good at picking the right quarterbacks. And my 2024 list looks okay, though, that I made. So actually, Purple Insider is the only one good. No, I'm just joking. It's literally no one. Because I've had, over the years, I have kind of in my head like a running list of guys that I liked or didn't like. And Josh Allen was one that I did not like. I was like, oh, I've seen this before. I've seen the big giant guy with the big giant arm. Oh, here comes Kyle Bowler, right? Like, no, he's not Kyler Bowler. He's an MVP of the league. In that same draft, I did not like Baker Mayfield. I liked Josh Rosen, did not like Josh Allen, didn't love Sam Darnold, and love Lamar Jackson. What a genius I am for loving Lamar Jackson, and what an idiot I am for not loving Josh Allen. I don't know. And you could say, well, they got so much background and so many things you don't, and yet they get it wrong all the time. I don't know, man. It is very complicated. Jack says everyone's jumping on the Kyler to the Vikings bandwagon now. You were the first to call it. I'm going to raise the banner. I mean, if they get him, that'll be a fun time for old Purple Insider. Because you're right. This was something I did think made a lot of sense a little while back. But we've been having this conversation for quite a while now. Because they started 4-8. So what they were going to do, I had a lot of time to think about it. I apologize. I forgot just getting to, I liked Anthony Richardson. I didn't like Josh Allen. So then after I was wrong about Josh Allen, I was like, you know what? I'm in on Anthony Richardson. I mean, over the years, it's probably win one, lose one. I was big on Drake May. I was low on Caleb Williams. I'm still not exactly sure what Caleb Williams is going to be because he was really good this year, but inaccurate still. Jaden Daniels I was high on. Bo Nix I was higher than other people, but I really liked Penix. And I don't know that that's working out so far. Another injury, and I don't know. How do you factor that in when you don't have his medicals or whatever? But just nobody really knows. Let me get to that list, by the way. Sorry, I got distracted. Good conversation here, guys. Really appreciate that. Not the QB lists, but the trade targets list. So I want to show this to you guys because I enjoy Greg Rosenthal's work. Podcaster, former NFL.com, right? I don't actually know if he writes for NFL.com anymore, but I think he originally wrote for PFT as a contributor. Anyway, so he tweeted this out today that he made this list of trade targets for NFL Daily podcast with Bill Barnwell. And I want to take a look at it and see if we're interested in any of these. Of course, Kyler Murray Mac Jones are on this list. And are they the only two quarterback? Oh, Tanner McKee. I did not include Tanner McKee. People seem to be into some sort of Tanner McKee idea. I don't know. Did he have like a good preseason? I mean, they used to do that. Anthony Richardson is on the list too. But in terms of guys that caught my eye that the Minnesota Vikings could be potentially interested in that are on this list from Greg Rosenthal and Bill Barnwell, the wide receivers, probably not. But Keon Coleman might be worth a roll of the dice, or Brian Thomas Jr., roll of the dice if those guys are actually on the block. But the names that stuck out to me the most were Dexter Lawrence, which is quite a surprise, but did have a down season last year. And I think his contract is problematic. That would be most likely a disqualifier for the Vikings, is Dexter Lawrence with his contract. But he is Dexter Lawrence, and, at least intriguing, that possibility. We've seen him be an elite player. Jackson Powers Johnson, the interior offensive lineman from the Raiders. Now, it isn't exactly like the Raiders have had a ton of success with their offensive line recently, but Jackson Powers Johnson was pretty decent last year, like the 2024, and they're looking for a center. I mean, the center options aren't great. There's not too many star centers other than Tyler Linderbaum, and they don't have the money anyway. Kenny Clark caught my eye a little bit here. Were he to become available, the contract is a problem, but maybe that's just because he destroyed the Vikings for so long. This list does have TJ Hawkinson on it. I would be surprised if the Vikings were looking to trade TJ Hawkinson. Maybe draft Kenyon Sadiq, or maybe get somebody else's tight end in free agency. I don't really know. I think after making that move, like, Hawkinson has been a favorite of KOC's. They'll just restructure, but it's on the list. Riley Moss from the Broncos is somewhat interesting cornerback, and Jesse Bates from the Falcons, safety, might need a safety. And then I noticed Jalen Carter is on the list. I'm not really sure why. They would be insane to trade Jalen Carter, who is an unbelievable talent, but maybe questionable at times. So an interesting list nonetheless, and a handful of players there that the Vikings could potentially be interested in. Thank you, A Truckin, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Aaron, have you watched any of the quarterbacks this year? Mendoza, Kirk-like, no other guys worth watching. Truckin wants Breece Hall. Dowdle was Breece Hall is probably a little expensive. Might be a little expensive. Truckin wants Jalen Watson or Jamel Dean. Yeah. So just in terms of the quarterbacks for this year, I mean, I think a veteran corner is a must for this team. So I agree with you on that. As far as the quarterbacks this year, I think the difference that I see between Mendoza and Kirk is the size. Like, Mendoza's a pretty big guy. I understand where people are coming from for that. I do think he throws it harder than Kirk did when he came out. When people compare every quarterback that's not like a freaky athlete to Kirk, like, early Kirk is mostly just a play action quarterback and is very limited. And then he becomes more of a complete quarterback later in his career. Is it just like guy who has to play from the pocket is always Kirk? Like, Kirk isn't the only quarterback who always plays from the pocket. He actually kind of looks like Daniel Jones to me because of the height. Daniel Jones is really tall and stands kind of high in the pocket and can be inaccurate, but has high IQ. So I like Mendoza as a guy that you can start to build around and look to take advantage of the rookie quarterback contract. I like him from a character perspective a ton. I think that he's got really, really great competitiveness, toughness. The major concern is he takes a lot of hits. That's what I think. That he takes a lot of hits. Eddie, how many playoff wins does Murray have in his career, and what were his stats during that game? Eddie. Must I? I'm going to take a sip of Diet Dr. Pepper before we talk about this, Eddie. Eddie, What were Sam Darnold's playoff stats before this year? Not a very good way to grade a quarterback. Anyway, so I think with Mendoza, I got to watch a lot of him, obviously, because he was in a lot of national TV games and won the national championship. So his toughness is I think, exceptional. And Clint Kubiak having him run like a bootleg type of offense, I think there's a big learning curve. And honestly, a reason to maybe not include Geno is they should probably like try to work with Geno there and have Mendoza not play. I really think they should have Mendoza not play right away and truly commit to Clint Kubiak, truly commit to a veteran quarterback there and have him figured out, because I didn't really see a pro offense there. Now, as we learned from McCarthy, that's a myth. Pro offense is a myth, but I think he's going to have to learn how to really be under center a lot with Clint Kubiak. And I don't know how much he did that at Indiana. It looks like a lot of shotgun to me. So there's work to be done. You might say there's limited upside, but not if you build the team the right way. Okay, couple more, then we'll call it a night. Having a good chat, though. Appreciate you guys. Scamping around, thank you for the super chat. Kyler or Carr would suffice. JJ can incubate. Truckin', would you say this last postseason was the most frustrating for the Vikings? Or this past season was the most frustrating Vikings season in your lifetime? Well, I mean, for me, like, was it the most frustrating of my life? I mean, I don't know about that. Like, there's some seasons in there that are pretty rough. How about if you go back to, for me as a reporter this last season, the reason that it was frustrating is that it was not fun, the actual games. So you guys know, I am not rooting for either team at the game, but I do enjoy a good football game. And when I fly all the way to Los Angeles, and it is a pain in the butt to fly to LA, deal with the traffic, get to the stadium, and then see 37-10, I'm not having a great time. Like, I'm having a great time that I'm doing this job and talking to you guys and podcasting and everything else, but watching the game, I'm like, this is dreadful. And the number of times this year where I could have thrown my head back and said, this is dreadful, were way too many. Even some of their wins, just awful. The Christmas Day game, my goodness, that was not a present. That was a lump of coal. So from a joy perspective of, I like to watch football like you guys do and have fun, tense football games that go back and forth. Well, there weren't very many of those. So there's that. But I think even of the last 10 seasons that I've covered now, 2018 was probably for the team the biggest disappointment other than this, because that year was supposed to be, hey, if Kirk is even good, then this team could play for the Super Bowl. And they just never got there. And it was very clear early that they were not going to get there. When they lost the game to Buffalo, we all went, uh-oh, this team's not that good, are they? And the vibes in camp were weird and everything like that. That had a lot of frustratingly bad games too. It had some fun ones mixed in, but it definitely had a lot of games where you just went, what is going on? Their game against Seattle that year, what is happening? And they almost won it. There was like a tipped interception. Was that Anthony Harris or was that 2019? No, I think that was 18. Either way, yeah, I think this is for me covering the team, the biggest disappointment season other than 2018. For Vikings fans, I'm sure there's the Les Steckel year. That had to be incredibly frustrating coming off of Bud Grant. And you had a year where, Dante Culpepper is coming off this great season early in his career, and then the defense completely collapses. Culpepper puts up all these stats, but they lose a bunch of games. How about, you talk about frustrating, they started out, could it have been 6-0 or 6-1? And then they end up missing the playoffs was that 2003? So there's, these seasons happen. It's definitely not the most frustrating, but it's one that was nowhere close to what it was supposed to look like. I did not believe that they could have an offense that was this bad. Phil would love to hear your take on defensive tackles worthy of our first round pick. Okay, so right now, I think that going into the combine, there's probably it doesn't seem like it's a year that has a bunch of big time defensive tackle prospects, but more rather like just pretty good. So Peter Woods is one of them. We talked about Christian Miller the other day. I could pull up the draft simulator here and get my list. Let's see. Let's pull up the mock draft simulator and get the list here of defensive tackles. Caleb Banks is one of them that I've got my eye on for sure. It seems like, though, there's just not that, hey, this is the next big superstar defensive tackle. Like, there's a lot of good prospects. Peter Woods and Caleb Banks are the two that if one of them drops to where the Vikings are at, they might make sense. Lee Hunter has jumped up some draft boards from Texas Tech. Hunter is one that you could see having a little bit higher of upside. He has a good pass rush win rate, good run defender, decent pass rush numbers, got some pressure, some sacks. Caden McDonald, I think a lot of people are high on. I am less so because I just feel like there are limitations there from a pass rush perspective. That's just hard to see. So I think it's a draft where you can get someone in that range that has potential to be a starter. I don't think that it's a draft where you're looking at stars at the defensive tackle position, except Banks you might be able to sell me on because he missed a lot of time and might have a higher upside. Aaron, what day are you going to the combine? Will you be talking to people in the league? Yes, of course. Every combine, I go hang out at certain places where I know a lot of folks are, and we'll be chatting with a lot of people. We'll be doing the buzz of the night for sure. So the combine starts next week. Booked my flight, my hotel and stuff today. Chris Trapasso's coming with. So we're going to have our draft expert there. Hoping for the Radio Row table. Hasn't been sorted out yet, but either way, we'll be doing a lot of interviews and stuff like that with other media members, getting people on the show and breaking down the press conferences with Dane Mizutani. So there's going to be a ton of stuff from the combine. It's always a little bit play it by ear, but I will be arriving there late Monday night. So next week there won't be a live stream because I'll be flying to Indianapolis, but it'll be late Monday night that I get there, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I leave on Thursday. So I actually never stay through the workouts because it's much better for me to come home and watch Daniel Jeremiah break down the workouts much, much better than it is for me to go to the stadium and watch things that I don't know what's going on. Just watch guys in underwear running 40s. It's so much better to get the insight from one of the best of each prospect than it is to go there. So that's how I usually work it out. Truckin, thank you again for the super chat. Which quarterback would you be most upset with having? Well, look, none of them are going to make me upset, but I think the one that would really make you go, we're doing this, huh? We're really doing this, would be Kirk Cousins. I mean, it's not that I don't think he could get them to the playoffs under the right circumstances. I mean, maybe in this division, it's kind of a long shot, but like, are we really doing this? For so long, we debated Kirk Cousins. For so long, they couldn't escape the middle with Kirk Cousins, and then we're doing this. So that would probably be it. DK Free, do you see Kirk wanting another contract? Would he even sign anywhere for the minimum? I do think that Kirk would be realistic about the price this time, but as we know, he ain't coming for free. Cam Ward or Fernando Mendoza? I would take Mendoza. I'm not big on Cam Ward. I just think he plays out of control. His highlight reel is amazing, but the consistency is really not. And he's older. That's the other thing too. Oh, 2010. Yeah. I mean, I was just sort of popping numbers into my head of like the years. 2010 for sure is the most disappointing season. That might be, when you talk about ever, 2010 might be the most disappointing season ever. Truckin. Thanks again for the super chat. Really appreciate these. Unnecessary. You don't have to, but I appreciate it. Last year's offense was 1940s high school off. I don't think quite that much, but last year's offense was mostly a nightmare to watch. I mean, it was sacks, it was turnovers, it was inconsistent accuracy, is being polite for both quarterbacks. And then the Max Brosmer starts. Yeah, it was tough. It was very, very tough. That's right. Is that contra something? Combine season is peak gossip. 100%. Yep. And that's it. It's hard sometimes to get all my work done because you're trying to also, because I am not a goes out person, not unless I'm walking the dog, in general. So me going out to a bunch of different places that are packed with people is very like stressful for me. Some people love it. That's just not me. So it's like we go and then we'll have the press conferences. We'll do our podcasts. I'll connect with different people. I'll spend the day trying to write something for the next morning, breaking down what we heard in the press conferences and the buzz and everything that's being talked about. Try to listen to other coaches and other GMs that are at the podium, try to book guests for the podcast. And then it's like, all right, man, long day. Oh, now I gotta go out somewhere and stay out there until late trying to figure out, and sometimes it's just seeing friends. Like there's a lot of that too. There's a lot of that. Seeing friends around the league that I don't see all the time that cover other teams and things like that. So I'm not like always just trying to walk up to every scout or executive and be like, what's going on? It just sort of happens, like you talk to other people. Sometimes you talk to other people who cover other teams and are like, oh, I heard this. You're like, oh, okay. I mean, those people are credible or whatever. Chris Trapasso knows a lot of scouts because he's in that scouting world. So he ends up talking to those types of people. It's an interesting couple of days. So anyway, well, this was really fun, guys, as always. The plan is to go live Thursday. If there's anything else that catches my fancy, maybe Wednesday. We'll see. Depends on kind of what we got. Mike Renner is going to be on the show probably Wednesday. So that might be the podcast for that day. Jason Wilde talking Malik Willis tomorrow. Keep your eyes out for that. The train doesn't slow on Purple Insider. Okay. There may be others who start talking, baseball or whatever, but we're going to keep going on the speculation train, and I'm going to make more lists. It seems like you guys enjoyed that. So that's something I'm going to do. Mock drafts, simulating the off season, and a lot of stuff coming for next week. So we'll make it fun. Thanks everybody for joining. Hey, if you're here talking football on February 16th, then you are hardcore and I appreciate you. So thanks everybody. We'll talk to y'all again soon. Don't forget to answer that FanDuel question of the day in the comments if you're rewatching this, and we'll catch y'all later.